Our final story tonight is rated PG. Parental guidance suggested for anyone under 30. Forget about the birds and the bees. Ask Mom and Dad about the Beatles. They invaded this country 30 years ago this month and captured a generation of Americans. Correspondent Anthony Mason takes us on a magical history tour in tonight's Eye on America.
These are our goals.
30 years ago today, Lyndon Johnson was president, Cassius Clay was getting ready to fight Sonny Liston, and a Liverpool quartet hit #1 with a tune called I Wanna Hold Your Hand. And America heard the Beatles were coming this way.
They're now at latitude 24, longitude 62. They're getting, they're over Greenland, and people would go crazy.
Thousands of teenagers were waiting when they arrived at the newly named Kennedy Airport.
And the kids were all pushing forward and all screaming, and I said I wasn't going to scream, and we all screamed anyway.
Who came up with the name Beatles, and what does it really mean?
That's just a name, like shoe.
Shoe. The shoes. You see, we could have been called the shoes for all you know.
I mean, everything about them was different. Their music was different. Their looks were different.
And somehow my newspaper had moved heaven and earth to get a Beatle.
Tom Wolfe, then a young reporter, found himself assigned to George Harrison's limousine and reported on the 80-mile-an-hour ride from the airport, chased by a teenage girl in a taxi.
Finally, she rolled down the window of the taxi, and George Harrison rolled down the window of the limousine. And she yelled out, "How does one get to meet a Beatle?" To which George Harrison says, "One says hello."
Boys started combing their hair like the Beatles. Miami columnist Dave Barry was one of them.
We were all deeply envious of the fact that the Beatles had women hurling themselves out of buildings to try to land on them.
Within weeks, the Beatles had the top 5 songs in the country.
And we had special jingles like this one here.
Disc jockey Cousin Brucey once hung out a hotel window to describe a Beatles arrival.
Here they come, the Beatles. There goes John, there's Paul, there's George. There is Ringo. They are now definitely here. The boys are here.
As a group, they were something very special.
Christina Krupke was 17 and sneaked into the Beatles' Plaza Hotel press conference. Her father was the hotel photographer.
And then I got a picture with the 3 of them.
So for a 17-year-old girl to be standing in between 3 of the Beatles,
it's indescribable.
The rest of America got its first real look at them 30 years ago this Sunday night, when from this theater on his weekly television show, Ed Sullivan introduced
the Beatles.
Close your eyes and I'll kiss you. Tomorrow I'll miss you.
73 million people tuned in, the largest audience ever at that time.
There were bells on a hill.
Then we were still trying to figure out which Beatle was which. Now it seems we could never forget those names.
Till there was you.
So now, years on, here we are.
Inducting the late John Lennon into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame last month, Paul McCartney said the surviving Beatles were ready at last to reunite for a recording session.
For old time's sake, we're going to give it a whirl. We're not trying to better anything that the Beatles did. We know we can't do that.
Yesterday,
they were the most popular group that has ever played. Who could have known 30 years ago how they would come to change our music and change our lives?
oh, I believe in yesterday.
In New York, I'm Anthony Mason for Eye on America.
And I believe in yesterday.